Welcome to Sense of Style. I'm Stuart. 8 perfect fragrances for a gentleman. Gentleman is a term that I used to hate. I didn't like using it. I thought it was old-fashioned, it was old, and it was also a little weak, a gentleman. And I thought, yeah, there's nothing masculine about that. I have changed my tune. Theodore Roosevelt, one of the greatest American presidents, used to talk about walking softly and carrying a big stick. Basically, that was American foreign policy. It was the big stick was power. We're already powerful. We've got this big stick. We don't need to make a lot of waves. We're going to walk softly because we don't have to. The intimidation is there. That's what being a gentleman is. Gentlemen are usually very successful. They're usually either really successful or very, very confident. They don't need to make waves. And I've noticed with a lot of professional athletes, when they come into the league, they're loud, they're boisterous. The more successful they get, the more they're proving themselves. The quieter they get, the more gentlemanly like they become because they don't need to prove themselves anymore. And these fragrances are exactly the same way. These are fragrances that are good. They've got very solid performance, but they're not going to overwhelm you and scream at you for attention because they don't have to. Fragrance number 1, this is Prada Luna Rossa Carbon. The thing I love about the House of Prada is they take popular DNA, and this takes the DNA from that sort of spicy aquatic. It's got black pepper, ambroxan, and citrus, very popular compliment-getting DNA. They took that and they made it smoother, cleaner, and more gentlemanly. And I mean, they really did a good job with this one. So they added watery notes, they added metallic notes, and then their patented lavender, which is a very smooth lavender. So this comes across as like great date night fragrance. So it is very appealing to women, but it is much more gentlemanly. It's a little bit more toned down. The performance is still really good. This one is at least 6 to 7 hours in terms of longevity, a good couple of hours of projection. So it still performs really well, but it's not going to be in your face with the black pepper. It's not going to be off-putting. Very gentlemanly fragrance, and this is a really successful release for Prada. Fragrance number 2, this is Amouage Honor Man. And I know, you know Amouage really well, but you've probably never heard of this, and that's because this one has been forgotten about. It's a really nice fragrance, and it's modern, but it comes from a style of fragrance. So woody, fresh, spicy fragrance that is not in style at the moment because we're living in the social media age where everyone's screaming for attention. And this is a gentlemanly fragrance from Amouage. Now, it is really powerful. I will say that. It is an Amouage after all. It's super powerful. Like talking 10 to 12 hours. But in terms of like being in your face, there's no vanilla. This is a woody, fresh, spicy. So you get an awful lot of fresh spicy at the beginning. Black pepper and pink pepper. It's really strong, but predominantly there's a lot of woods. There's a little bit of incense. There is some geranium, really nice sort of green feel. I do, however, find that the pink pepper is kind of strong early on. So like after half an hour, this one gets a hell of a lot better. So I'm not a huge fan of the opening, but overall, this is a very gentlemanly scent, very woody, and yeah, it's great. Fragrance number 3, this is Prada Luna Rossa Black. And this did the exact same thing that Carbon did, except they went for dark, ambery fragrances, which have a real tendency to like overwhelm you with gobs of vanilla. And, they weren't having any of that. So there's tonka and amber. So the sweetness is a little bit toned down, but it's still plenty sweet. And it's very dark. So you're going to get a lot of patchouli in here. You're also going to get a fair amount of musk. So there's a musk note, then there's angelica, which is like an herbal musk note. Very strong performance, but it's somehow strong, but not in your face. This has a subtle gentlemanly element to it, but that's what Prada does. And they did it well with this one. Fragrance number 4, this is Givenchy Gentleman Only, and this is a fragrance I traded for, and I looked it up before I went to pick it up. It had a low Fragrantica rating. It didn't seem very popular. It was fairly cheap online. I thought, And then I tried it. On the way home, I couldn't stop smelling. I love this fragrance. And I was like, why is it under the radar? About 2 months later, I saw Ashton from Jensense do an underrated fragrance video, and this was like the third or fourth fragrance on the list. And I was like, okay, this one is underrated. And it's so gentlemanly. This is finely balanced, finely tuned. It's a perfect mix of a wide variety of notes. So predominantly it's a woody fragrance. There's vetiver. It's not a vetiver fragrance, so it's much more birch. Birch is smoky. And then there's an incense note to prop up the smokiness. So there's a smoky, woody feel here. Then there's a mandarin note. So it is noticeable. So it's a little bit of fruitiness. Then you've got pink pepper, a little bit of spiciness. And it's a perfect balance of all those things. Woody, smoky, a little fruity, and a little spicy. And it's got great performance. And yeah, a surprisingly accessible price tag. But that's because, again, this kind of fragrance is not in style. It's not loud. It's not super sweet. It's just good. Fragrance number 5, this is Pacific Rock Moss from Goldfield and Banks. That's an Australian house. It's a niche house. And this is an aquatic that's very gentlemanly, right? So it's got a lot of lemon, also a fair amount of citrus. It also has, well, you can tell by the name, moss and sage, so an aromatic quality. And it has this gorgeous geranium note. And there's always, I find, when it comes to learning about notes, there's always a fragrance where a certain note will stand out. For me, saffron, I learned about saffron from Amber Pour Homme from Prada. I learned about tonka from Allure Homme Sport Eau Extreme. That tonka is really good. And this is just a phenomenal geranium because I knew the other notes and I'm like, what is that? They're very green, very fresh note that I get, and it was the geranium. And so the geranium is really nice, and this has a niche scent. The problem with this one that some people seem to have is you're paying niche prices, but the performance here is more designer. So you're going to get about 4, maybe 5 hours. Reasonable amount of projection, though. You do notice this very much early on. But yeah, that's the one a knock on this. But the scent itself is lovely. It is a very gentlemanly, very clean, and as I've said before, very smooth fragrance. And yeah, if you're looking for a good aquatic, this one's it. Fragrance number 6, this is Scent Intense from Costume National. This is what I'm wearing today. And this one really is a gentleman's fragrance. It's a mishmash of notes, but they work really well together. So the most prominent note here is amber. So you're going to get some amber. I mean, you can tell it's a dark bottle, so there's a fair amount of patchouli. So that dark woody patchouli you're going to get. You're also going to get tea. It's very noticeable, and a hibiscus note. So hibiscus is a floral note that's spicy. So you're going to get a little bit of spiciness from the hibiscus, a little bit of a floral feel from the hibiscus. You're going to get the amber, a fair amount of that. You're going to get a little bit of tea. There's a lot going on here, but it comes together and works beautifully. This one is, in terms of projection, you know, we're talking about a foot. It's not a heavy projector in terms of performance. You're talking about, you know, 4 or 5 hours, more closer to 5. It really is nice, but it's, you know, if you're looking for beast mode, again, if you're looking for beast mode, this is not the one for you. But if you're looking to be a gentleman, this is original, it's smooth, it's ambery, and it's perfect for a gentleman. Okay, so you like sweet tobaccos, but you want to be a gentleman. This is the perfect fragrance. This is Ombre Noire by Lalique. And this, the problem with sweet tobacco fragrances for me is a lot of them are just have tons and tons of vanilla. They're just too sweet. You know, they can still be nice, but they're not gentlemanly. This one solves that problem. This one is a gorgeous sweet tobacco that is smoother. So it's much woodier than your standard sweet tobacco. It opens with fig leaf and mint. And you pick up that throughout, a little bit of powdery mint. But then, you know, when you're talking about the sort of typical sweet tobacco notes, you're going to get them. Tobacco, tonka, not vanilla, tonka. You're going to get a little bit of cognac and cinnamon. And you're going to get, like, you know, 6 to 8 hours of performance, a ton of projection, but it's just not going to be like super sickly gourmandy sweet. There's too many woods in this for that. And It's just a fantastic, gentlemanly, sweet tobacco. Finally, this fragrance had to be on the list. This is Dior Homme 2020. To me, this is the most gentlemanly fragrance that there is. I put it at the end, though, because everyone already knows about it, but this is 4 woods. And it's got a little bit of pink pepper and some elemi and some musk. But it's really those woods. It's just a sparkling, fantastic woody fragrance. You're going to get vetiver, cedar. You're going to get cashmeran, which is a musky, woody note. Now it goes nicely with the musk. And then you're going to get a lot of Isoe Super. But Isoe Super I find kind of raw on its own. But it is the most prominent note, but it's surrounded by a lot of support. Phenomenal performance, extremely elegant, classy fragrance. And yeah, I mean, there's no flaws in this one. It's a perfect gentleman fragrance. So yeah, you don't need to scream and go, oh, give me attention, give me attention. If you're good, you don't need to do that. And these fragrances, yeah, they don't scream. Thanks.